Yep.
And I see, I didn't know.
Good evening. Welcome to the March 26, 2012 City Council Workshop Meeting. Rose, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Russell?
Here.
Councilmember Plinsky? Here. Councilmember Greenlee?
Here.
Councilmember Lindsay?
Here.
Councilmember McDaniel?
Here.
Councilmember Shoemaker?
Here.
Councilmember Freeman?
Here.
Thank you very much. At this point, we would invite any members of the public that wish to address council to step forward. Anybody that wants to make comment at this time? Okay. We're going to move right into our presentations. We have two presentations this evening. The first one, a presentation by the Fort Vancouver Regional Library. Chris Huey, our librarian, welcome. Thank you for being here this evening. The microphone is yours. Hopefully it's on.
Hopefully it's short.
It'll move.
It'll move, okay. Is that good?
I don't hear it, though.
Can you hear me?
Is it on?
Nope.
Are you hearing
I have to
anything?
stick it right in your mouth.
Probably, yes. Okay. Well, I just wanted to come over and introduce myself. Today I've been here 7 months. I can't believe that 7 months has gone by that fast, and I've met some of you already in different situations and some regular library people here that I know by face. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about what's going on with the library and then ask you if you have any questions for me. So let me start with, I think our biggest news is that we are currently engaged in a search for a new executive director. We've had the same director for about 20 years, and currently we just have an interim director, but they're doing a nationwide search, and we're all very excited. If you're interested in looking at the requirements, they are on the consultant's website, and the website is junegarcia.com. And you can see on there it says Fort Vancouver Regional Library, and there's a very nice brochure that they put out. And it talks about, it emphasizes working with all the communities in the district and a lot of exciting things about what we're doing to build things in the rural communities. We've been focusing in our district on building the big libraries. There was a lot of fundraising and bond measures passed. That's finished, and now we're working on the smaller areas in the rural part of the district, and so those of us in the smaller areas are really excited about that. So I wanted to tell you about that, and then I wanted to show you a little visual. We're in the process of replacing the carpet over there right now, as you know, so everything's in boxes, but on my way out the door, I grabbed the library applications that came in just in March so far this month. This is new people that are coming in, and about half of them are in the city, but about half of them are somewhere in 98671. And what this tells me is that those are people that are coming here to do business and shop, and we're their library. So we're guessing that we're serving about 23,000 people. So we're very excited. We don't have that many coming in, but that's the area that we should be serving, that are in our district, that want us to be the library and want this to be the town where they come and do their business. So we're very excited about gearing up and being able to serve all those people. And we are working with the school district. We're up there doing a lot of things with them. So that's another exciting thing that we're working on. And we hope you'll come over and see us and see our new look as soon as we open our doors, hopefully on Friday. Does anybody have any questions for me? Thoughts?
Dave?
Hi, Dave.
Thank you. When do you close the application process for the director?
March 31st.
Okay.
And they said it's open till filled, but they have a number of good applicants, good people interested, so.
Thank you.
I do, yeah. The number that you gave as far as potential users of the library, that was it 23,000?
We're estimating, we're in the process of trying to work out the census blocks that fit within 98671, and we're estimating between 23,000 people in that area.
Okay, so when you take that information, what do you do with it? Do you have a certain number of square footage as far as a size of a library that you would need to service, that number
We have
of
an
residents?
ideal.
You do?
Yeah, the state of Washington says it's 0.5 square feet per person, so you're working on something like that, and we know that we are way too low for that. So that's one of the things that we're very excited when the new director gets here, that we'll be working on, looking across the district for
Okay, great.
some equity in size. So.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions for Chris, comments? Well, Chris, thank you for your enthusiasm. Being from Washougal, you bring some enthusiasm to the group without a doubt.
We're very excited that Janet and Rachel are such a wonderful staff, and they've sort of hand-built a very loyal clientele there, so thank you.
I just thought of something. How many square feet do you have now, roughly?
Right now, 2,400, and only 1,800 of that is public.
Thank you.
We do a lot of outreach.
I just wanted, you asked for comments and I didn't say anything. I just want to say thank you. I love our library. I use it all the time and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, our second presentation from the Parks Foundation, Vancouver, Clark County. Cherry, good afternoon.
Hi.
Welcome.
Didn't plan for construction. Kinda close here.
We're building a new park. Just kidding.
So thank you very much for allowing me some time to come and just provide you an update of the Parks Foundation, what we've been doing, what we've achieved. It's been a few years since I've been here. I think 2009 was the last time. I would like to introduce Henry Gerhard in the audience. Henry has been with the Parks Foundation much longer than I have. He's served 3 terms as board chair, and I'm sure you all know he is a Washougal city resident. And I believe he's on your planning commission. So thank Henry for being here and for all he's done for the Parks Foundation. So it's not at the beginning. I don't know who's in charge, because I will really be messed up. It should start. There we go.
Yes,
I think it's the pink
That's the top.
iPad that's messing him up there.
Okay. So
You think?
Basically, I'm just going to provide sort of a quick overview of what we've done for the entire county in 2011, which was last year, but also want to also highlight what we've done for the city of Washougal. In 2009, that was, I believe, the last time I was here, we came to talk to you about our strategic plan that we'd formed, and we were very excited about the fact that as a foundation, our goal was to start giving money out to the community, raise money, give it out, and we give our money out through grants that the cities can each apply for every year. And so that's mostly what I'm going to talk about. Do I have a clicker or? Oh.
Just look at me.
Okay. I'm not sure the whole screen is showing either. Yeah, it's kind of off a little bit, but I'll do the best I can. You guys probably can see the whole thing, can't you? Okay. So for the city of Washougal, in 2009 was the first year that we did actually give out grants. And we provided $1,200 to support your April 18th Mabel Kerr Trail Park trail building. And that was a volunteer effort. It was held in conjunction with Earth Day. Suzanne Batchelder and I worked very closely on that. It was very successful, fun. I think we had about 50 volunteers out, and it was sort of our first venture out in the community. Okay. Excuse me. And then in 2010, we provided $4,271 for the Raptor play equipment in Beaver Park. And one of the things that we've appreciated about Washougal is you always match. And one of the things we look for when we provide a grant is what is the city going to provide matching or in support of that project, and also volunteer, in-kind labor, volunteer support. And Washougal is always head and shoulders above in that area, so we're always happy to give grants out. In 2011, we provided $1,600 for another project at Mabel Kerr, and that was a cleanup day and trail building. And these projects have all been submitted by Suzanne. And that is how our grant process works. It has to come through the departments. It can't come from a neighborhood association or a citizens group. It needs to come straight from the department. And that's a good way for us to vet the projects and make certain that we don't get sideways with the city funding a project that maybe you can't actually do or is not a priority for the city. And this year, Washougal has submitted 2 grants to the Parks Foundation. Excuse me. One is for the Cedar View Trail Project, and the other one is for, I believe, a half-court basketball at Hamlick Park. So we are actually meeting we have a grant review committee made up of partially of Parks Foundation board members, but also citizens from the community who are on the Parks Advisory Commission. So we don't just have the foundation reviewing and approving the grants. We'll be meeting at the end of April to go over the grants and decide how we're going to allocate our funds this year. So we look forward to providing you with some good news. Both of these grants are being matched dollar for dollar by the City of Washougal. Kate. So in 2011, through the Parks Foundation, we distributed out $117,000 and 736 to all the cities of Clark County, special projects, programs. I'm just going to quickly go through what those were to give you an idea of the scope of the projects that the Parks Foundation helps to fund and also funds ourselves. Excuse me, I'm fighting that awful cold. For 3 years in a row, we've provided funding to the City of Battleground for their Traveling Summer Playground program. And last year, that program expanded into the City of Ridgefield. So during the summer, they take the fun into the parks, more to the children who don't have the opportunity to access summer camps and playground programs. They actually bring the fun to them. And that's been happening in Battleground for 3 years. And we are really pleased to see that they were able to partner with Ridgefield and expand it out there last year. New bleachers in Ridgefield's Abrams Park were funded through the Parks Foundation last year. Yakult received tri-bar equipment. You see $842. This year, Yakult's asking for a skate park for about $30,000. So I encourage the cities to ask us for more money this year, and I'll explain why. So Yakult really took us at our word this year. We fund, a lot of money comes through the Parks Foundation from individual donors, organizations wanting to fund special projects, special programs. One of those is the Access to Recreation program through Vancouver Clark Parks and Recreation, and that's for citizens with disability. It ensures that those, mostly children with disabilities, are provided access to the same programs and fun that all the other children in our community are. And so last year, almost $3,000 came from the Parks Foundation for that program. The Everybody Plays Scholarship Program is a county-wide program, and that's any child in Clark County who is from a low-income family can apply for a scholarship to participate in programming provided through Vancouver Clark Parks and Rec. So those are your children who might not be able to participate in dance classes, softball, baseball, soccer, art classes, swimming lessons. Last year, $32,000 in all. The Parks Foundation has provided $95,000 in the last 5 years for the scholarship program. That's been a very strong focus. I believe everyone should have access to fun recreational programming. Another way that we partner in the community is with individual donors who have a strong interest in funding. The Bauman family, swimming is very important to them. They believe that all children in Clark County, given the water that we have, the lakes, the rivers, should know how to swim. And so each year, for the last 3 years, they've provided $12,000 to provide a free family swim day at Marshall Community Center, and also to provide 100 scholarships for children who would not be able to afford them otherwise. And those scholarships are open countywide. Any child in Clark County who meets the low-income scale is eligible to apply for those. Evergreen Park Summer Playground has been funded through the Parks Foundation for the last 3 years. That's the park on the Fourth Plain Corridor. I'm sure you probably read about it. It was kind of overrun by gang activity. The city decided, let's take that park back, get rid of the gang influence, put the summer playground program in there, had evening activities for families, and guess what? It's cleaned up, the gangs are gone, it's a safe place, and the families feel like they've gotten their park back.
Wonderful.
Excuse me. We funded a new nature play area in Marshall Community Park. Nature play has been a focus for the Parks Foundation for this is our 3rd year. We had a nature play summit in 2010. Richard Lube, author of Last Child in the Woods, came and spoke. We had 375 people attend that luncheon, basically talking about nature deficit syndrome in our children, how they're not getting outdoors, they're not playing, they're not allowed to just go out there and get muddy and have fun and learn to appreciate nature. It's been a strong focus for us to, it seems funny that you have to build nature play areas, but you do. All our parks sometimes become sterile with all the formed playground equipment. So we went in and put wooden lily pads and dirt and sand and just sort of recreated a natural environment at Marshall Community Park, which is adjacent to the community center. In 2010, we placed a nature play area at Hagen Community Park. And I believe that's a project that Suzanne has kind of in the future that she's thinking about as well. Senior programs at Lupke Center, which is part of Marshall Community Center, have been funded each year through a bequest to the Parks Foundation from the Theodore Barney family. And he left $750,000 to the Parks Foundation specifically to fund senior programs. So each year, about $35,000 goes out to the center. The seniors have a senior advisory committee. They sit down, they decide how they're going to spend that money. Everyone has a vote, and mostly it funds programming for the seniors at the center. We had a Mac design this, so it's not looking exactly how it was supposed to. Many of you have probably purchased a brick in Propster Square of Esther Short Park. The sale of the bricks in the square fund the plantings in the park. And even though Esther Short Park is in downtown Vancouver, I think that we all could say it's a definite county-wide jewel. We all appreciate it. It has all the programming in the summers, the concerts. So 3 years ago, the endowment ran out, which paid for the plantings in the park. And so then the Parks Foundation was asked to find a way to raise money to fund those flowers. So we funded the flowers, and we've also organized volunteers to come in and take the morning, plant the flowers under the direction of Public Works. And the Hilton has brought in both snacks in the morning and then actual lunch. They wheeled it across the street in their little tuxedo and silver serving trays. And it's a great day, so when you see that one come out from the Parks Foundation, you might want to participate in that. Teen Center received $2,000 through the Parks Foundation. A lot of times it's not that we raised the money. This was actually from Kohl's provided a grant and Opsis Architecture. So the money comes to the Parks Foundation specifically restricted for for teen programs. And this is just giving you an idea of how the community is saying, we want to help Parks Foundation take this money and make certain it goes to these specific programs that we feel are a priority. Just again, the bricks, and we also sell benches in the process actually at William Clark Park. Those benches are available for adoption. They're a memorial feature. When you purchase the bench, we place a granite marker there to memorialize it. So that's sort of a countywide program. It is something we're willing to work with cities if they are interested, but we don't want to take over any kind of existing program that you already have. But we have worked with Battleground on their bench program as well. So with the nature play areas, last year we formed a program called Nature Explore Clubs, and decided that we were going to organize 25 groups, find a club leader for each group. They would then recruit 15 to 20 children for each group, and we provided them all the equipment they needed to go out in the woods once a week and work with kids and just get them out there engaged in nature. Columbia Sportswear donated 30 backpacks, very nice, well, probably retail at $100 a piece. REI donated magnifying glasses, compasses, binoculars. We had field guides donated, birding, ducks, bugs, footprints. So the kids could go out there and actually start looking at things and saying, oh, this is that, and oh, here's that. We borrowed curriculum from the Arbor Foundation, so we filled the backpacks with a 30-page ideas, what you could do day one, what you could do on your next week. Just fun ideas, because you don't need all of that to go out and be in nature or take kids to the park or go on a trail. But some people do need just that little boost to help them get out there and get the kids engaged and excited. It was a very successful program. We're launching it again. We'll be launching it on May 5th, and we hope to grow to 30 this year. So it's totally free. We didn't pay anything other than staff time, and everything was donated, and the people who participate don't have to pay to be a part of it. We last year formed the Florence B. Wager Award Program, honoring Florence Wager. I'm sure you all know who Florence Wager is. She's just sort of our community icon to parks and recreation. And we were able to honor 3 citizens last year for their commitment to parks, trails, and recreation. Ron Onslow, the mayor of Ridgefield, was honored as the leading eagle, which honors someone whose head and shoulders just really leads, gets people out there, gets them motivated, and just gets things going. We also have a tributary award, which is a staff member from Parks and Recreation in the county who's head and shoulders above everyone else. Last year, Debbie Hansen from the City of Battle Ground received that award. And the V Formation Flyer is for your unsung volunteers out there, the quiet people doing all the work. And I'm sorry, that name is escaping me. He was instrumental in the tennis center, getting that going. And you could probably help me. But so we're looking forward to receiving the nominations. If you know of anyone, the deadline is Monday, this Monday, April 2nd, and the winners will be honored at our luncheon on June 14th. So in addition to giving money out and having our own projects and programs, we also partner with smaller groups and organizations in the cities of Clark County. In Washougal, right now we're working with your Steamboat Landing Kinetic Art program. What we do is hold the funds, accept the funds, provide the receipts, do all the tracking, pay any bills that come in, and generally help promote the program as much as possible. So it's on our website. If someone goes to it and wants more information, it links to more information that Suzanne has provided to us to have on our website. So that way everyone gets their tax credit for their donations. In Battle Ground, we're working with them on their Veterans Memorial in their Kiwanis Park. Camas, the Washougal River Trail, is a special project held through the Parks Foundation. We don't charge to do this. This is what we feel is our service that we can give back to the community. Overlook Park in Ridgefield. This is just a few of the county projects that are held through the Parks Foundation. So what you have is a group of people generally. Whipple Creek is a great example. Very, very much grassroots, citizen-led, came to us through the Parks Department. It has to be approved, again, just like the grants. The department has to say, yes, we want to do this. Came to us, and I think they opened their fund with $30 and have received grants, have organized volunteer days, have just gone gangbusters, and are really doing great work. So it's that kind of group that we really like to partner with to help them achieve their goals. We hold a lot of special project funds for the City of Vancouver, and that's just a small example of a few of them. So this year, we've been asked for $98,000 in funding through the Parks Foundation grant program. Last year, when we announced our grants, we had $17,000 to give out, and this year we have $65,000 to give out. So we're very, very proud of the community for stepping up and helping us in our fundraising and really recognizing the importance of our community grant program and getting out there and donating. Waste Connections and Tidewater both provided matching campaign funds this year, which definitely boosted our fundraising. But I think more than anything, the community has seen that the money we raise, we give it back. We give it back through our grants. And so that's exciting to know that if you give us $25, it's going to go right back out to the community. And you can ask me what we did, and just like I just showed you all the things we funded, I think people really like that. And it's so 17,000 to 65,000 just shows you how successful that's been. Unfortunately, we've been asked for 98,000. And last year we had 17, we were asked for 34,000. And by going to businesses and organizations in the community and saying, hey, we don't have enough money, can you help us? This grant might make sense for your business. We actually funded all of them. So an example is this Riverview Community Bank has a branch in Battleground. So I went and I said, hey, we don't have enough money to fund Battleground's summer playground program this year. Would you like to help? Sure. So they actually sponsored that grant last year. So in working with businesses like that, we didn't have to tell anyone no. So I'm working hard to see if we can do that again this year and fund all the requests that we received. And this is what we've been asked to fund. A volunteer program in Battleground, the summer playground program again, which Riverview has already stepped up and said, we'll do that again. We like that. Camas has a playground equipment they would like, Ridgefield trail signage, a waterways trails map, which would benefit the entire community. It's basically for canoe and kayakers, gives you an idea of where to put your kayak in, where you can go, where to take out, how far is it, is it safe, are there restrooms, all those things that aren't out there right now. So that's one of the things they've asked us to fund. The scholarship program is the one I mentioned that we've funded $95,000 in the last 5 years. They've asked for $15,000 for us again this year from us. The Evergreen Park Playground Program, and then Washougal, your Cedar View Trail construction, and Hamlet Park Half Court. And then Yakult actually resubmitted their grant. It's gone up a little bit so, since then. I've asked them to do a 3-year type plan so we could maybe not have to say no, and maybe do it in a 3-year plan, so it's changed a little. So that's what we've been asked to fund. The way we do that is we have events. We just recently had our St. Patty's for Parks at Shorty's Garden and Home. It was $20 a person, and Shorty provided the location. Most of the beverages were donated or at cost, and so basically it was just a big fundraiser for the Parks Foundation. I don't have any numbers. We had about 400 people there that night, so it looked like to be a very successful event. We have our annual luncheon, which is when we present the grants, and I know Paul has been there every year, and probably some of you have also been there. We present the grants to the cities at the luncheon, and we also present our Florence B. Wager Award. So I hope you mark your calendars and plan to join us for that. We got so big that this year we're going to be at the Hilton. We outgrew the Water Resource Center. And that's also a fundraiser. We look for sponsors for that, and the attendance helps raise funds for the Parks Foundation. Our golf tournament is still our biggest fundraiser. And this year we were asked to be one of the concerts, one of the nonprofits benefiting from the Concerts for a Cause at Camas Meadows. And that will be on July 10th, and Linda Hornbuckle's the guest artist. Everything at the gate goes to the Parks Foundation. So that's one of the ways we raise money to give out these wonderful grants. Membership is an important part for the Parks Foundation. Not only does it bring in revenue for us, but it also demonstrates to the community that people believe in us, that they support us, that they think we're important, and that they want to be a hero and help support our parks. So the hard part that we have facing us, as all of the cities know, deficits and budget cuts, and parks seem to be an easy target sometimes. It impacts the very people who can afford it the least, and that's the children from low-income families, our seniors, a lot of times our veterans. And so it is a strong focus for the Parks Foundation to be certain that the people who really need the services most still receive them. So that's sort of a quick overview of what we've been up to. And if you have any questions or would like any more information.
I was one of those volunteers at Maple Kerr Park,
Yes.
planting trees and making trails. And I just want to say also that the annual luncheon, which I've gone to for several years, is really one of the more enjoyable public events. in some ways, it's too bad that you outgrew the Water Resources
It is.
Center, and in other ways, it's a good thing. So I just wanted to thank you for all that you do.
Well, thank you for your support. I appreciate that.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
I do have some handouts. I don't know if there's someone I can give those to. I didn't know if y'all had access to the trail maps.
Oh, great.
And then also our membership brochures. So can I give this to you?
John.
You can have all my stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Henry, thank you as well for your contributions to the Parks Board. You're welcome. Okay, going into agenda bills. Community development, a public hearing and resolution adoption for critical areas memorandum agreement with Clark County Utilities. Mitch?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a reminder that next Monday we will have a hearing on this item. It is a request by Clark Public Utilities to renew their existing memorandum of agreement with the city in regards with critical areas. This agreement allows Clark Public Utilities to do the repair and maintenance on their infrastructure without seeking individual permits every time that they have a project within a critical area. It does require Clark Public Utilities to utilize best management practices within the critical areas and provide any mitigation if it is necessary. The original agreement was approved on May 15, 2006 and is set to expire this May. There are no proposed changes between the old agreement and the agreement before you now, with the exception of the date, moving it out an additional 6 years. There hasn't been any changes to the critical areas ordinance in that time period. There's been no changes and nothing necessitating any other additions or subtractions from that agreement. So the recommended action, which is actually different than the agenda bill that you have in front of you, is to hold a public hearing to take public testimony, and is to make a motion authorizing the critical areas memorandum of agreement with Clark Public Utilities. Turns out the code, we don't need a resolution or ordinance. It's just an agreement that we're entering into with them in regards to, it's like a permit for them. Questions?
Any questions for Mitch? Okay. Mitch, thank you very much. Moving to Public Works. Authorization for the mayor to sign a decant services interlocal agreement amendment with Clark County. Jim?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, this is a decant services interlocal agreement, and it is with Clark County, as the mayor mentioned. This is a best management practice, or what we call a BMP. It has to do with the best management practices that we have for stormwater. And these practices are requirements under our Phase 2 stormwater permit. So just a quick overview, you can see the vac truck there. This vac truck cleans all of our catch basins every year, and it pulls all that debris into the tank there. And we also have sweeper debris that we pull off of the streets. It's a very wet material, so a lot of liquid there, and decanting is basically to take off the liquid and to basically dry that material out as solid. We don't have a facility in our jurisdiction, well, with the city of Washougal right now. We're planning in 2014 to construct one. But these, the catch basin cleaning, the street sweeping, these are all things that we have to add to our annual report to Department of Ecology. So we haul these to Watley Pit, and it's over off of 76th Street in Vancouver. And the costs are quite substantial to run the equipment over there and to dump the equipment and to that decant facility. So, as I said before, we're looking at facility construction in 2014, and it is in our capital facility plan. And this is kind of a decant conceptual design that we got from Wallace, and I just kind of wanted to show you this in conjunction with this agreement with Watley Pitt, just to let you know that it is temporary, that we will be building this eventually. Right here is where the truck would back up and offload the debris. It would go through these different settling chambers, and the material would be decanted. We would put the decanted material here, and it would further drain, and then we'd be able to mix it in and maybe use it for soil or planting or something like that after we can separate the garbage out of it. This is just an expansion area, possibly for parking. This would be a drive slab where the truck could go in and wash out as well. I just thought I would let you know the facility upgrades that we're doing in conjunction with this agreement with Clark County. So are there any questions on the interlocal with Clark County for the decant facility at this time? Do you have any questions?
Jim, do you have any feel for how much this would increase the average homeowner's bill or business's bill for stormwater?
No, I don't have, as far as the construction of the facility there? Or?
No, just the agreement that we're talking about tonight.
Well, we have the agreement in place, and it is already included in the rates.
Okay.
So the price did go up, the tipping fee went up, but
I saw that.
it's inconsequential, I think, to the rate structure at this point.
I'm glad to hear that. So then, on this facility here, this is part of our capital improvement.
It is, yes.
And that's coming out of money that we've built up by raising the rates.
Right, this would actually be funded through our revenue bond, that this would be a project that's included in the revenue bond.
And the revenue bond will be funded by
Rates.
the raised rates.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks
Yes.
very much. Thank you, Your Honor.
Hey, Jim, this agreement is set to run through, the fifth year is 2014, so we've got construction slated no later than 2014. So we'd be using the facility 2015 and no longer in need of
That's our hope.
county services.
Yeah, it costs us, $10,000 to $12,000 a year to haul over there, and fuel and staff time and tipping fees. So it's quite expensive.
Other questions for Jim? Dave?
Just one more, if I might, Jim. Any chance that the county would deny us the use of their facility between now and the time of ours coming online? And if so, do we have an alternate?
No, we don't have an alternate. We do have a small facility over at the treatment plant that we could possibly use, but I don't think there's much chance that they would deny us use. I know that we were a signator on the agreement in the first place, so I don't think there's much chance that they would say, no, you can't use it.
Outstanding, thank you.
I think the agreement in total is pretty much in place through
That's correct.
14. The only thing that we do on an annual basis, Councilmember, is update if they need to update the rates and that type of stuff. But the agreement itself, the only thing we have ever amended is the rates. The agreement itself stays in place.
But we're not aware of any plans they have to discontinue this facility.
Well, whether they do or not, in our case, they wouldn't be doing it until the end of 2014. The other cities that take part in that may have other plans as well out there, but we agreed and contracted for them for, they did with us for a 5-year time period, so.
Okay.
Not to say they couldn't get out of it, it would probably be fairly
Yeah.
uncomfortable, and they'd have to come up with some remedies for us as well, so. Other questions, Joyce?
How much do we pay the county for their service to use the decant?
There's a tipping fee. It should be on the agenda bill there. Trying to find it here.
Page 13.
13.
Got the wrong one in front of me.
Do you know about what
Yeah,
the
it's
payments
one-
come to on an annual basis, Jim?
What's that?
Do you know about what the payments come to on an annual basis to Clark County, not counting our costs in there?
Yeah, it's right around $6,000. we're not able to haul all the material we have over there, so it's about half. We're looking at like 76 loads if we did all of it, but we're looking at right around 30 loads, so.
Okay, not seeing any additional questions. Authorization for the, oh, go ahead.
Question, I'm sorry. Once this facility is built, is it really specific for our size community, or would we be able to offer other communities an opportunity to decamp here?
Yeah, we're looking at more of a regional approach because we might be able to get some Public Works Trust Fund money out of that, or possibly some grant funding as well to pay for a portion of it. So we're looking at a regional approach. And we would probably build it in maybe 2 phases, and just leave enough room for expansion for the future. So if that answers your question.
Sure does. Thanks.
Another question.
Yes.
Where's this being built again?
That would be at our treatment plant off of SR 14.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to actually fill one of the cells, and we're going to do some dredging this summer, hopefully, if ecology allows it. And then we're going to do the dredging and then actually do some filling of the lagoons.
Other questions, comments? Okay. Moving on to Arbor View Stormwater Facilities Acquisition.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. This is a stormwater facility that was actually never turned over to the city. The Arbor View Homeowners Association actually approached us and asked that we would take over the facility. We have been maintaining it for years now. The crew's gone out there and maintained it, and when we pulled up the plat and we looked at it, it was originally intended to be turned over to the city after the warranty period. So in the interest of customer service, we got a hold of our legal department, and we're working on a quitclaim over to the city for this Tract A here, this stormwater facility. Are there any questions on Arbor View stormwater facility? Like I say, we've been working closely with legal to make sure that all the requirements are in place.
Dave?
Actually, I've got 4, Jim. The first one you might not be able to answer. They mentioned special exceptions are being removed from the deed. I'm assuming that's our legal counsel's bailiwick. I'll put that one on hold. Do you have any idea what the cost is that the city's assuming this responsibility? What cost is associated with the city assuming this responsibility?
Yeah, like I say, we maintain the facility. We go in there once, maybe twice a year. We've always maintained it, and it was originally supposed to be turned over to the city for us to maintain. So our cost associated with maintaining it is going to be the same, if that makes any sense.
Sure, absolutely. The third one is, what will be the impact of the city assumption of this responsibility on HOA members' stormwater bills? I'm assuming that's nil.
Yeah, that's correct. The stormwater bills would be the same.
Okay. And the last one is, are we setting a precedent here by assuming control of a facility? I understand it was actually built into the approval process when they approved the subdivision.
Right. Yeah, I don't see the precedent setting piece of it, just because, it was originally supposed to be turned over to the city, and it wasn't. And it just seemed like it made sense, as far as a customer service piece, to move forward with this. I don't see it sets a precedent for other HOAs.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer?
I do. So once we assume official responsibility for the stormwater facility, Or what do you call it, stormwater?
Stormwater
Piece of
facility.
land.
Sure.
Would it fall under our permit?
Yes.
Okay, and so you're confident that it meets all of the requirements?
That's correct. We went through it here recently just to look at the functionality of it, to see if it was brought up to our standard, and it was.
Great, thanks.
Other questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add a comment, I think it might be helpful. When this plat was recorded back in 2003, it's our understanding that at the time it was the practice of the city to make a requirement of the plat that the facility be turned over to the city. And it is a requirement of this plat, and frankly, we don't have a choice but to take this on, and it was just an oversight that happened after the maintenance period. We have been maintaining it as if it had been turned over to us. We just don't have the paper, basically, and so that's all that this is doing. It is no longer the city's practice to assume responsibility for these facilities in the platting process. I can't remember exactly when that changed. So what you have out in the community is a combination of facilities that have been turned over because they were platted to be turned over. And so there are some out there like that, and then there are others that are private and continue to be private because they were platted to be private, and that is the current practice. So that transition from one type of practice to the other type of practice leaves some inconsistency out in the community. This shines a light on that a little bit, but it should have been taken care of probably in 5 or 6 years, quite some time ago. So that, just a little background on these facilities.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, moving along to a professional services agreement from Ecological Land Services for environmental assessment for Heartwood Park Trail Development.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. And as the mayor said, this is for ecological look at this area here. This is Heartwood here, Heartwood Park, and this is the trail that we're talking about here. It's real close to Camp Creek, so there are some fairly strict environmental requirements that we need to go through, and then also if we want to get some funding for it, if Suzanne is going to write a grant and possibly get some funding for construction, we'll need to get the environmental permitting in place to do that. So that's what we're looking at. I think it's a good aerial just to look at, the connectivity there that we have with our trails. And Suzanne's done a really good job, putting this together over the years and piecing this in. And this is another piece. This was budgeted. It is in our capital facility plan. So excited about getting these connections made. Does anybody have any questions on ELS environmental assessment?
Now, Jim, off your map, we should make a note that even though it's in blue, Camp Creek is nowhere near that size up there.
Yeah.
There's no lake, there's no little reservoir up there.
Yeah.
Questions for Jim? Dave?
Sorry.
This seems to be my night, and your night, Jim.
Yeah.
You're in the barrel here. Who's asking for this trail?
We are, in a sense, because it is in our capital facility plan. So
Which
we have.
came from the park board? This portion came from the park board?
Park board has reviewed, yes.
Was
So-
it their initiative or your initiative?
As far as the initiative goes, I think it's something that's been in the planning process for quite some time. And like I say, Suzanne's done a really good job of piecing these together. So as we acquire property in places where we think there'll be some connectivity, then we move forward. It's in our facility plan. Park board reviews that.
Okay.
And
Thank
it's in the plan that's already been adopted by council as well.
That's
And in the
correct.
budget. Okay, Joe?
Can you point out the major streets there so I can get a better grip on where we are?
Sure. Yeah, this is
I'm trying to find it on my
49
Google
here.
Maps, but it's not coming up.
Goes up. This is U Street in through here. So this is W Street up here. So you go down here, this is the end of W Street here, and then 45th goes up to here. We actually crossed this area with our W Street water line extension this year.
So 49th is one that goes up and
Yeah,
then
this
goes
is-
up the hill, big
Right.
sharp,
Right.
okay, then I
Yeah,
do.
right here. Goes out this way.
Yep, been watching that being done then.
Yeah.
Other questions? Okay. Authorization for the mayor to sign a project grant agreement from the Washington Utilities and Transportation Commission for the protective grade crossing on 32nd Street.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. This is a state utility and transportation grant that we are applying for, and we have received, and we're just asking that the council authorize the mayor to sign the grant agreement. You can see the project here up on the screen, and we have pedestrians that walk through here quite frequently. We have a couple of type 2 barricades up right now at this crossing, but people go around that all the time. You can see the trail in the dirt there. So we feel it's a safety issue. The state thinks it's a safety issue, and the railroad thinks it's a safety issue as well. So we'll be placing this sidewalk in. The railroad will be coordinating with us, and we'll be replacing both of these concrete panels at the crossing there. And then we'll also be purchasing a little sliver of right-of-way here or an easement from the railroad as well. So this is at 32nd Street. This is Evergreen here. And this will tie in nicely with our 32nd Street improvements if we decide to go that route. And then also with our CDBG grant over here on 32nd, which eventually ties into Addy. So we're trying to keep connectivity in mind when we do this. Any questions from council on the grant agreement?
Dave?
Hey, Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
A couple of quick ones, if I may. Has there been any consideration of putting it on the east side of 32nd? And the reason I ask is, presumably, most of the people that would be using that walkway would be going to commercial establishments on the east side of 32nd when they got north of the railroad.
Yeah, there's already sidewalk in here and a crossing. So that's already complete, but we will be doing the rest of the sidewalk on the east side with the CDBG grant. So we'll have the east and west side completed with this project.
Okay. Let's see if I had another one there. No, that's it. Thank you.
Jennifer?
Just a quick question. Will this be a similar pedestrian crossing as what was installed at 24th?
Yeah, it will be similar, except it'll be concrete. I think we used asphalt there at 24th, so this will be concrete. It'll be very similar, yes.
Great. Is this poured, or will they be panels?
The concrete? Yeah, it'll be a poured sidewalk panel. The crossing itself is prefab material that the railroad installs. And the crossing that's there right now is not up to their standards, so this will all have to be replaced. And then obviously moved out, here to accommodate the crossing so that people can walk on that versus walking over the tracks.
So what is the time frame for this?
We're looking at this summer, hopefully,
Okay.
to get this done.
So that intersection will essentially need to be, well, that part of the intersection will have to be shut down. Okay.
And the railroad's gonna do that work regardless, so it's a good time to get in there and,
Okay, so they were planning on fixing that particular crossing?
I wouldn't
anyway?
say planning on it, but
Not to
this,
this degree.
yeah, this project kind of moved it forward. So,
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Yes.
Thank
Did you say how long it was going to take, and I just missed that? Between the sidewalks and the railroad upgrade?
the panels should go in within a day.
Oh,
So the crossing, you know, that's the panels in the railroad
yep.
track. So they should get that done in a day. This portion here, you know, we've got to get it formed and poured, and we'll try to do as much as we can during that time frame. There's some signs we have to put up. There's some truncated domes, which are the ADA. You see the ADA bumps and all the ADA ramps around town. That's what truncated domes are. So there will be. It should take, boy, for setup and construction, maybe 3-4 days, maybe 5 days.
Other questions for Jim? Don't, you know, this one, it's a fairly brief staff report, and it's kind of a brief project in total. It's probably the most expensive piece of sidewalk I've ever seen in my life. But if you're down in that area, you know, Jim is absolutely correct. It doesn't matter what's on the east side of that intersection. There are still people trying to navigate over on the west side of it, and to watch them try and get through what they're trying to get through out there with the traffic, everything else happening is just amazing. Jim, thank you to you and your staff for at least getting the grant for the $20,000 to help offset it. But, and to be sure, none of the, with the upcoming grants and the work that we have scheduled for 32nd Street, that intersection, all of that, should that move forward, this is something that would be incorporated into there as well. So we're not going to build it, turn around, and tear it back out again either, so.
If I could just say one more thing too, we do have a quiet zone in place, and, you know, for us to go over and above on some of these issues of safety and these pedestrian crossings, as well as the motorist crossings, I think is really important for us to keep up on this and to get these things taken care of, so that that quiet zone stays in place for ever, hopefully.
Any questions for Jim before we release him for this evening?
It's about a sign in that general vicinity. I just noticed a new sign that went up for Highway.
Oh.
Is that?
The traveler's information sign?
Yeah.
That's a, there's a motorist information sign on SR 14 that the state handles, and through an agreement with the state, the city puts a follow-through sign up.
Okay.
And the Highway pays for the sign, and then city staff puts the sign up to guide them to that location.
Good. Are other businesses in the city invited to do that? Are they made aware of that?
They are.
That's something I'd never seen before.
Yeah, they're called motorist information signs out on the highway, and
just never seen them here in town.
Yeah.
That's great. I think it's great.
Yeah, part of them, I'm not sure how you would answer that one, Jim. We have some areas where we haven't necessarily followed through on the follow-through signs that come off of the highway. We also have, and Jim, it might be a good thing for maybe the next workshop agenda, if we've got time on it, to bring forward the program that we've got kind of moving forward on informational signage down in the downtown core, River Road, 32nd, in some of those areas, bringing folks into the area, which is a little bit different than the blue motorist signs that you see. So probably would be appropriate to start bringing that in, especially now that we've got some information out there in the public on it, and we've got good response coming back on it as well.
Okay. Can do. Yeah, that would be our own sign program, so to guide motorists, but it would also help with advertising as well.
Good.
Other questions for Jim? Thanks, Jim. Have a good rest of your evening.
Oh,
yes,
Your Honor, we have one more walk-on item that Rose is going to pass out right now, and this has to do with E-Verify. We didn't get this till late in the afternoon today, so please bear with us. Actually, the resolution, the original resolution, goes into effect on the 4th. So we thought it was important to bring this forward tonight to have you review and look at it. We would just want to make sure that the intent is there. So there are some sections that have been struck, and there's some new language there. We can just kind of walk through this quickly. So I think you have the thick resolution there, and then you have the thin resolution, I guess I could describe it as. The thicker one is really where the meat and potatoes, I think, of the language changes have taken place. And Dawn English, in our legal department, has done a great job with this, kind of last minute, throwing this together. So we'll go through it here, and then if we have any questions, or during the week, if you have any questions, you can shoot those over to myself or to our legal department or David Scott, and we can work on this. Yes.
Yes. I see a mistake right off the bat. Let's see, in December, December 2009, did we pass Resolution 984 or 1047? It must have been 984, because 1047 was the amendment. Had to be. So number 3 in the short, slim resolution has got to be 1047. You
said number 3?
The small 2-page resolution.
Third paragraph.
Third
Okay.
paragraph. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Right.
So it should be 1047 there, not 984. Am I correct?
Resolutions 984 and 1047.
That was the amendment?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dave, did you have anything you wanted to add on this one?
That was good, yeah.
Jim's going to walk through what he described as the meat and potatoes, I think, and just right now walk it through with the council so that as they peruse it over the week, they can take, kind of digest that.
Okay.
And we got these just this afternoon. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some other editorial things we need to correct. We got it at about 4 o'clock, I think. So anyway, thank you for your patience with us on this.
So, yeah, when we look at the thicker packet there, on the first page down at the very bottom is business entity. So this was some language that was added. We thought it would be important to add this language as we move forward. And then the next page, you have B there, and that is city of Washougal, obviously. And then letter C, commercially available off-the-shelf items. So these are things that we get at the local hardware store and things like that, commercial marketplace. They're offered to the city without modification is what the language reads. But I think it was the intent of the council to not to have our local hardware store sign up for E-Verify. So I think that's the intent there. Letter D, contract. We're looking right in RCW for the definition of contract. And this is, I can just read it to you, it means a contract in writing for the execution of public work for a fixed or determinable amount duly awarded after advertisement and competitive bid, or a contract awarded under small works roster process in RCW 39.04.155. Contracts shall not include contracts with a period of performance of less than 30 days. So right in there, it talks about those contracts that went out for advertisement and, under a competitive bid process. If you get down to E, contractor, there was some changes there to contractor. And, this is fairly general. It's a service provider that enters into a contract in exchange for valuable consideration. I think the rest is kind of explanatory there. We have no government agency shall be considered to be a contractor. So if we purchase a piece of equipment off the state list, which we frequently do, versus writing our own specs through interlocal agreement, the state goes out, they go through the bidding process, and they have different vehicles. And if we purchase off the state list, obviously that would be exempt from E-Verify, to have the state try to, qualify for that. There's some examples here. I think that's important to note. We threw some of the examples in here. Others include banks, insurance agencies, and retail outlets, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're thinking here would not need to sign up for E-Verify, those type of businesses. So moving along on the third page, there's unauthorized alien. There was some language added there, and H was completely, the first part was deleted. Public work, that's a pretty broad definition, but it means all construction, alteration, repair, or improvement other than ordinary maintenance executed at the cost of the state or any municipality, or which is by law a lien or charge on any property therein. All public works, including maintenance when performed by contract, shall comply with Chapter 39.12 RCW. So if we have the janitorial service come in and perform a service for us, that would be a good example of who would need to sign up for E-Verify. And as I'm going through this, please, if there's any questions, maybe I can answer them tonight, or I can follow up and answer those as well. I don't know if I want to go through and read all of these, but really based, on RCW, so that we had some basis for the language here. Service provider, again, shall mean a person or entity rendering professional services. So we're talking, all the professional services we have, land surveying, engineering services, things like that, would need to sign up for E-Verify. We get through Section 3, Section 4, all the way to 5, and with the signature page. So that's really what we're looking at, and we're just trying to gauge the council's intent here. I believe the language changes do that. Like I say, if there are any questions or if there are any changes that you see, we can definitely make those changes before the meeting.
Question on page 2, letter D, under contract.
Okay.
The last sentence, contracts shall not include contracts with a period of performance of less than 30 days. So anything that we go into contractually that's less than 30 days wouldn't fall under E-Verify? Is that what it's saying?
That's what it says there, and I'd have to ask legal about why that 30-day limit was added. So we could definitely follow up.
Yeah, I'd like to know about that.
Just let me say, this takes care of most of my objections. I'd like to spend some time reading it, and in particular, look up the various legal references. But for example, under the old ordinance, having an oil change at Highway Fuel would have required Highway Fuel and all of its subcontractors to go through E-Verify. That simple phrase, contracts shall not include contracts with a period of performance of less than 30 days, eliminates things like oil changes and uniform cleaning for the police department at Camas Cleaners, and a whole range of other problem issues. So that that one phrase fixes a whole lot of it.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So, thank you.
Jim, just one question. A cursory reading of this, and that's all we've had time for tonight, suggests to me that your intent was to remain true to the intent of E-Verify. Is that the case?
Yes, that's the case.
Okay.
And, and also, when we bring it down to essentially, we change from the $100,000 contract limit to essentially, all contracts. So the first resolution was a little ambiguous. And so we've tried to put this language in here to clarify. And I think that was the intent of the council.
Outstanding.
So that's.
Thank you.
Jennifer, did you have a question?
I did. When we were talking about the contract we have with the cleaning service, did you say they would or would not be
No,
required?
Yeah,
Because that's a long-term contract, and we sign it, I
They
think, every
would
year.
need to sign up for E-Verify,
Okay.
a janitorial service.
Janitorial service,
Yeah.
right, exactly. And I'm seeing some, service provider, that's I guess, on page 3.
Okay.
Rendering professional services, accounting, architecture, archaeology. So this is not included under I, or is?
Those would need to sign up for E-Verify.
Yes.
They would?
They would,
Okay.
yes.
Those are more professional services, so that's good. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Certainly, as you read through this, our intent is to bring back as complete a document as we can for this following Monday. The reason being, your previous resolution goes into effect on Wednesday. So if we don't have something similar to this in there, then we will probably ask you to rescind the previous resolution, eliminating the $100,000 revision, so that we can at least still pay bills and feel good that we're doing that while we craft other language. So if you've got other questions, if you've got other items in there that cause you to have questions or wonder what's contained in there, if you could make sure and get those to Dave or Jim as early as possible this week so that Don can be reworking the document itself. Dave?
If I could, just at a very high level, Council, what these changes do is confine the applicability of this requirement to contracts for public works. That doesn't mean only through Jim's department. It just means when we're building stuff, basically, and for professional services. But I can see just a little cleanup language to make it clear that the professional services are included. They're defined, but there's another section where it doesn't say they're included. It is our intent that they be included, and I see the reason for your question, Councilwoman. We'll make sure of that. What it will not apply to is buying stuff, which is a significant sort of dilemma under this, because there's such a myriad spider web, if you would, of entities that are associated with buying things. Things that have many, many parts and pieces, and all of that. How would you apply the E-Verify? So what Don did is basically said, we're going to build something or do something, or we're going to obtain professional services. All of those would have to come through. But if we're buying something, it would not. So at the highest level, that's what this does. We understood that to be the intent of the council, and that's really what we're asking from you. At that high level, is that your intent? And you don't have to answer that right now unless you want to, of course, but feel free to communicate with us. And Don will be here next week, and if we have to, we can make adjustments as we go next week as well to get it right. Or as the mayor suggested, if we can't get it right for you by then we'll delay the other one, if it's your pleasure, so that we can take another week or two to fix it.
Dave?
If I might ask, and I don't know who the appropriate one to ask this of is, have other jurisdictions that have gone to the zero dollar contract limit had problems with this?
Don actually modeled this language after communities that have a similar threshold to the zero. It's my understanding.
That's correct,
He
yeah.
basically went out and used an approach that he found from other communities. So
But
we
ha-
didn't ask them, so we're assuming that they've similarly scoped the applicability probably for the same reasons, but we didn't ask them directly.
But have there been communities that use the original language that we used that have had problems as a result of that language?
I don't know.
Yeah, we did some research into it, looking at, what Camas did, and, obviously, the Small Works roster through Vancouver is zero. And we haven't heard any issues at this point. So, I mean, we did ask the question to a few communities, but no issues so far. I know this is kind of new, and there could be things that crop up, but
Could be a tidal wave out there, who knows?
yeah.
Joe?
One question about things being purchased not being under this category. That's a strange one. I mean, when you go down to True Value and you buy something off the shelf, some little item, but let's say the city's putting on a large banquet for some reason, or a summer event, and we need to buy produce from a local farm, and we're gonna make a purchase. It's not from a grocery store or a retailer so much as it is. I'm just trying to think of a scenario where it could backfire on us if we were to not know whether or not this farmer was part of E-Verify or not. Just as, like I said, as a scenario.
Yeah, and I think one important thing to remember too is we're not gonna know one way or the other. We, basically is what we're doing is we will have a form that the contractors, the contracts will fill out and say that they comply with E-Verify. But the city, with our staffing levels, we're not going to know. I mean, if something did happen, at that time we could produce the form and say, hey,
Yeah, it would
you
be on
signed
their
to
honor.
this, and- Yeah, but
we wouldn't get a form from that
no,
producer of produce.
no.
What's in front of you, what exists currently would require us to do that. Unless it could be defined and interpreted to be as a COTS item, a commercial off the shelf, in the commercial marketplace. I don't think it means that it has to come from a supermarket or a retail store. It means that it's readily available in the marketplace, if you would. So if it's something that others can go and buy and you can just go and buy it, we've already exempted that in our existing language. So for that example.
And
So if the intent of the council is to ensure that all funds expended by the city, to the extent possible, have been vetted in this way, you would need to leave the language exactly the way it is, and it would be a very, very difficult proposition for us. We perhaps wouldn't even know everyone we would have to ask for the form from, because there's so many parts to the distribution chain that go with some of the things that we procure. So what this proposal does is to make it manageable. It identifies where we have our significant expenditures, and that's on our public works projects and on our professional services. Of course, your staff is the biggest expenditure, and that's taken care of already. So this would be things that aren't readily available in the commercial marketplace that we would buy. It would not apply to that. So when we bought the fire truck, would be probably the best example. We spec'd that ourselves and we bought that. We did not ask, or we would not ask that the dealer sign up for E-Verify, the manufacturer, and how all that would all work. That's where it gets very cumbersome when you have a product like that.
Yeah, because there could easily be dozens, if not 100, subcontractors that provided parts or services to build that truck.
Right.
Other questions, comments? Okay. Thank you, Jim. David, you got a couple items on here. Revision to the interlocal agreement for trial consolidation of fire departments.
Right. Thank you, Mayor. Council, there are two items here that are companion. We reviewed these at your workshop on the 12th. They were reviewed by Camus at their workshop on the 19th. So they're here really as just a reminder from our workshop on the 12th. They'll be before you for action next week, as they will be in Camus. But as a reminder, as you know, we have an interlocal agreement with Camus regarding the provision of EMS services, and it includes trial consolidation of our fire departments. And it provides for a full consolidation of our resources to the level of captain. It does not address the staff and command resources that we have, and those remain completely separate. Now, we integrate them informally, but they are separate. At the very early stages of kicking the tires on the consolidation, there was a draft organizational chart that was created that identified what a consolidated entity might look like. So the mayor and I approached the city of Camas here over the last several months, indicating that for us to fully test drive, if you would, this trial consolidation, we should implement that organizational structure so that we really know how a consolidated entity would function. And what better time to do that, and what better way to do that than in a trial. So we've crafted an update to the interlocal agreement, which essentially allows the two agencies to consolidate at the command and staff level so that all of the resources would be consolidated. And the effective date of the agreement remains through the end of 2013. Now, perhaps the most significant implication of all of that for the trial is that regarding the chief. In that organizational chart for a consolidated entity, there is one overall chief. But there's also, one of the benefits of the trial is that there's the introduction of a new division chief for fire prevention, something that neither community has right now. And our chief, Chief Schumacher, under this proposal, would be filling that role. He has expertise and background as a fire marshal in a fire prevention role. So the second item that you have, the one after the interlocal agreement is very, very basic. It just simply says we can consolidate at the command and staff level, nothing more specific than that. The next item is essentially a memorandum of appointment. As you know, the fire chief needs to be appointed by the mayor. And so what this memo does is it holds Chief Schumacher's appointment in abeyance. It doesn't terminate it, if you would, or rescind it. It holds it in abeyance for the period of time of the trial, and during the time of the trial, it appoints Chief Swinhart from Camas as the chief of the Washougal Fire Department, if you would, really a consolidated Washougal and Camas entity. And it provides that Chief Schumacher's appointment would return immediately upon cessation of the trial, whether by its expiration or any other reason. And with your approval of the interlocal agreement next week and your essentially your affirmation of Mayor Guard's appointment of Chief Swinhart, we can effect a full trial consolidation and fully test drive it. So that's what's before you. Some administrative provisions to take care of that.
Questions, Paul?
If we go to Section 8, termination, I mentioned this briefly. In our original EMS agreement, we could terminate that agreement on notice. My concern here is that the word breach and the word remedy are two words upon which lawyers build their fortunes. They are probably the two most litigated words in contract law that are out there. I don't expect that we would want to terminate the agreement, but it is so much cleaner and so much better legally if we can terminate with notice without having to define a cause or a breach. And so I would very much like to see that back in this agreement. I recognize that it was not, apparently not in the original interlocal on trial consolidation, but it certainly was in the EMS interlocal.
Yes, Councilman, I'll go back and take a look, at the very original EMS document. I was really the one that crafted the updated interlocal agreement that incorporated the consolidation, and I did not do anything to the termination section, but that doesn't mean that when we had the legal review that there wasn't some changes there. But I am not recalling that we used the EMS document as the platform for, or the mechanism for introducing the trial, as opposed to a completely separate interlocal agreement. I will go back and take a look at what was inked in, was that 2008, I believe it was, when we added the ambulance back into the community. There was another agreement, that's the three-party agreement that dates even before that. I'll go back and take a look at that document, and if indeed it is as you're indicating, Councilman, then it might be prudent for us to introduce a couple different pieces.
Yeah, it's too bad John isn't here, because he's the only other one who would remember that at one point we gave notice to Camas that we were going to terminate the EMS agreement, and we fully expected at that point to have a contract with AMR. That did not happen, but I'm quite sure that all we had to do was give notice. There was no breach, there was no cause, none of that. And so I just as a matter of my brother, the attorney, tells me that you always write an agreement so that you do not end up in court. And
I'll take a look at that, and if it is indeed that case, then I will work with Camas between now and next Monday to come up with mutually acceptable termination language that we can work with, get that emailed out, so it'll be part of your packet.
Great, thank you.
If I find otherwise, I'll also communicate that as well, and then we can decide if we want to do something different.
Great, thank you.
Dave?
Is not the intent of this agreement to create an atmosphere in which the planning can go on, and there is certainty about the length of time that we'll have to do the planning and the integration?
I think the intent of the amendment to the existing agreement is to set a context for us to be able to move forward more, as best we can, so that you have one individual as the chief who's responsible and answerable to the two communities with respect to that. But it is a very unique sort of situation, because Chief Schumacher is still Chief Schumacher and will still be integrally involved with all of that. But it does provide for a unified command, which I think is important during the trial.
And how does this severability cancellation type clause affect the level of certainty that's required to do the type of planning and integration that we're talking about?
Based upon how we're engaged with Camas right now and the fact that we're looking at about 20 months or so, I'm not concerned that it's going to be an issue. I think Councilman Greenlee is pointing to that unfortunate circumstance that could happen, and just being sure about it. What's tricky on this termination language is there are two facets to this agreement. One involves the exchange of significant sums of money and the provision of advanced life safety EMS services in our community and the staffing of an ambulance at our firehouse. And that's been there for years. And we stuck into this trial consolidation, right or wrong. We didn't do a separate interlocal agreement. We put that in there. And I think it's the trial specifically that should be able to be undone with just some notice. I think our partner might have, I need to investigate exactly what that 08 document said with respect to the provision of ALS services and the exchange of the significant sums of money, because that's a much more fully scoped type of agreement where the termination is very, very important. It's less important for the trial, if you would. So
Okay.
I'll review that and come back with a recommendation for you.
And I appreciate it. My concern is that we not cause our partners in this such discomfort that they decide to withdraw from it themselves.
Understood.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say in all of the discussions that we have had with Camas, all of the discussions along the way, and Councilman, you've certainly been in many of those, they're very amicable. Everybody in those organizations, both organizations and the volunteers and the union, are asking the questions. They're getting answers in regards to what ifs and wherefores and that type of stuff. In the end, and I certainly, Councilman Greenlee, I certainly see some of the argument that you've got on this. I don't anticipate it to be a problem either. And in the end, worst case, the interlocal agreement goes away the end of 13. And we don't need to renew it. We don't need to vote for a consolidated fire department. We don't need to vote for an RFA. We don't need to do any of that. I think it's very fair to say and very accurate to say that both communities have gone into this trial consolidation as a true trial to see if it is a better service to all of our citizens of the community. And we agreed at the start that if, for whatever reasons, it's not for either one of us or for both of us, it ends. And I don't think we would get an argument on either side. I think we need to have proper noticing in there as far as time, because we could certainly devastate each other if we just pulled out. There are things such as contracts that call for certain periods of times of shift changes, all of that, and as we integrate, we're certainly going to be everywhere all at the same time, so.
And we've built up a great level of trust, as you indicated, and it's that trust that I want to protect, because we're going further than we've ever gone in the integration of anything between the two cities. That takes a level of commitment, trust, and that sort of thing that one or the other of us won't back out precipitously.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, one of the advantages of the technology that we've invested in is that I was able to pull up the 2008 agreement. It looks to me that the attorneys mostly clarified the termination language, but I'd have to check in with them. But basically what it used to say, and so it did change the last time we updated this. What it said was that the agreement may be terminated by either party upon written notice identifying good cause, and that there be a minimum 90 days upon receipt of that to remedy. So there was still a remedy provision. Once that period expired, then written notice of termination must be delivered, and it had to be 6 months. So it looks to me that what the attorneys did is instead of using good cause and remedy, they used breach and remedy. I don't know what that means specifically, what the difference in the burden is between a showing of good cause and a showing of breach. Breach sounds pretty serious. So.
Yeah, a breach is a tort.
Right, and I'm not sure about good cause. So I will get an analysis of that from Don, and I will email that out and ask him what he thinks. He reviewed this one before and thought that it was appropriate termination language.
And that 2008 agreement actually replaced the previous agreement which is the one under which we gave notice and then withdrew the notice. That 2008 agreement was part of the process of settling the dust afterwards.
Right, and that's the agreement that we used, and we just added things to it, so.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Okay. Thank you, Dave. Yes.
One other thing, Mr. Mayor, on that first agreement there, in our packet, page 51, there's a summary of interlocal agreement, EMS and trial consolidation. There's a series of bullet points there. The third one acknowledges the fiscal unsustainability of the current system and commits to a cooperative effort to continue to evaluate the system to seek system efficiencies, review service levels, and explore alternative delivery systems or delivery options. Bravo. That's what I've been looking for.
It's in there.
Thank you.
You bet.
Way to go, Dave.
Any other items for David?
On that second one there, the Washougal Fire Chief,
On the appointment?
yes. Nick Swinhart as Washougal Fire Chief, who does he report to?
He actually reports to both myself and Mayor Higgins.
So you guys have to come to an agreement. That's fair. I mean, we're in a trial consolidation.
Yep.
I don't like, I have a military dislike of serving two masters. But in a case like this,
Well, I think it's probably important for us to point out as well, and I don't know if we've communicated this as much as we probably can. A lot of the information as it pertains to the integration, the organizational chart, the chain of command, as you will, in the department, all of that has been developed over the last year and a half, almost 2 years, going on 2 years, somewhere in there, through discussions with Chief Schumacher, Chief Swinhart, and before that with Chief Leon as well. So it's not something where necessarily we went out and surprised anybody by, where we were going to as far as command structure itself was concerned. And I think it's fair to say that both chiefs also recognize that really in a truly unified working department, there can only be one chief. And so the cooperation among the chiefs and putting them to their best educations to work in what we have them doing in this integrated command has been something that we've worked through with them as well. So,
a final comment, if I may. I just wanted to thank both chiefs for their cooperative efforts and their acceptance of new responsibilities under this agreement, because they are substantial and they're different, and it's going to be a lot of work for these guys. I think they've stepped forward and done the city a service.
Thank you for that comment. I'd like to echo that. And just, Mayor, if I might, just to clarify, during the trial consolidation, all Washougal employees are Washougal employees and all Camas employees are Camas employees. So Chief Swinhart remains a City of Camas employee. So any hiring and firing decisions, if you would be Mayor Higgins. But to the extent that he's acting as our chief, he reports in quotation marks to Mayor Gard, sort of operationally, if you would. So it's a very sort of unique situation that we've set up, and it's important to note as well that in Camas, one of our employees, Chief Schumacher, is their fire marshal. They don't necessarily have to, we're not aware that they have to make an appointment per se, because their code doesn't require that, but it's an administrative appointment that they'll make. So the significance of what you were pointing out. That's what it means in Camas, for example.
Other questions, comments? Jennifer?
Actually, you answered my first two questions, basically having to do with Chief Swinhart and the fact that it's a title only and he would not be considered a Washougal employee. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the other question, we kind of touched on it a couple of weeks ago when we talked about this, but as far as our staff is concerned, the Washougal firefighters and staffing level here, before any hiring or firing decisions would be made, it would have to go through, would have to go through the administration in Washougal. Correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
That's all I have.
Dave?
And I'd like to pursue that clarification just a little bit further. As I understand it, what you've got is Chief Swinhart has operational control of our assets, but he doesn't have command of them in terms of the training, the readiness, all that sort of thing, the pay, the benefits, all of that is still resides with Washougal.
I would say that he's operationally has the training as the unified chief, but we are bound by our collective bargaining agreement with our employees, just as Camas is with theirs. So rates of pay are subject to our collective bargaining agreement and any MOUs that we've done, and as you know, there are a couple that we've done. So yes, we are still separate in many respects. The trial consolidation allows us to act as if we're not, but if something came up that required significant consideration, like adding staff, if you would, the council here, and that we were going to pay for, you would have to appropriate that through a budget or a supplemental budget. Termination decisions, the way we are crafting that administratively, that will reside with us. But I can imagine, if we have a Washougal employee deployed in Camas for any length of time, if there are any issues, the Camas folks are supervising that individual, they'll have and vice versa. It will act as if we're one in that regard, but ultimately the decisions in those types of cases, significant decisions, would be ours to make. We haven't divested ourselves of those. Now, if we become a regional fire authority or a fully consolidated entity and permanently, the answers would be different then. It'd be a very different, but we would be very deliberate and purposeful. And
I recognize the agreement doesn't address this aspect of it, but do you know if Chief Swinhart has plans for some sort of an active liaison with Washougal?
yes, Chief Schumacher will continue to be a point of contact for the administration and for the council to the consolidated departments.
Okay.
But from time to time, we think it would be important for Chief Swinhart to engage with the council. He'll certainly be engaging with the mayor and I, and we'll continue to develop that relationship since he is being appointed potentially next week as our chief. So,
Actually, I think you just hit on what I was looking for. Ron is going to continue to be not only the fire marshal, but he's also the deputy chief of the new department, of the consolidated department.
yes, he's one of three at the chief level. Chief Cliff Free is the EMS division chief and has been for a little bit, and then Ron joins with him and Chief Swinhart. So there's two division chiefs. Our Chief Schumacher is fire prevention and fire marshal. Cliff has the EMS, and then Nick has the overall command. Chief Swinhart has indicated that he likely will turn to Ron on most occasions in his absence. But I believe he would like to give Cliff an opportunity from time to time as well to have that acting in capacity, I think, for his development as well. But
Well, I think the two deputy chiefs have the ability, or division chiefs have the ability to get the issues to Chief Swinhart when it's required. So that's what I'm looking for.
yeah,
It's a very high-level liaison capability.
right.
Yep. In addition, Chief Schumacher will also, in essence, be station chief of Station 171, so he'll still operate out of here and work from there. I think in the final integration, or the final organizational chart, we also have a third division chief. That of operations is called out for at some point in there as well.
Well, it's something that Chief Swinhart has identified as a need. That's an unfunded need.
Yeah.
But maybe someday.
Well, even Chief Schumacher and Chief Leon, when they were going through their organizational chart, had that in there as well, so.
True.
Paul?
I just wanted to add, I went to the bowling alley burn, and one of the things that I was curious about, and Councilmember Shoemaker will appreciate this, was what kind of rapport, what kind of command, camaraderie, what kind of kidding went on between Chief Swinhart and the Washougal volunteers and the Washougal professional staff. And it was a well-integrated unit. It had all of the appearances of being a well-integrated unit that without any particular distance or standoffishness between our people and Chief Swinhart.
It's that kind of esprit de corps that we're seeking to build, because that is the essence of a good department.
Well, that being said, though, they had almost two complete fire departments there, and the building still burned down.
In fact, it's still burning.
It's still burning. Just kidding on that one. It was a good training session, I'm sure, and I know I talked to a lot of our volunteers and some of those that were in the academy program now, and the amount of hose time that they got, and the amount of smoke that they got every direction possible. And then my understanding is that our volunteers also stood fire watch on that thing until Sunday as well. So it was a good time for a lot of folks to be involved in there, both the volunteers and the paid folks. So, any other items on fire consolidation from council? Okay. We've got a discussion item on here. Is that just a holdover from an old? I don't know of any discussion items that we had. Okay. So we're at that point in the agenda for any members of the public that would wish to address council. Last chance for this evening. Rod?
My name is Rod Morris, 4050 Addy Street. Councilman Greenlee, appreciate the fact that you brought up about the E-Verify. I thought there were some discrepancies in that whole process, and I think that having gone through this process, it's a lot cleaner now and a lot more easily to understand, and not far-reaching into those things where they got somebody like a car dealership or the fire truck dealership. Jim, on the decant facility, you said 10 to 15,000 is what it costs a year to run back and forth to Vancouver. What's the new decant facility going to cost to build?
We're looking right now in our facility plan, it's about $700,000, but it is in our capital facility plan to construct. So,
but at $10,000 to $15,000 a year, we could drive it there for many, many years for $700,000.
We could. With our staffing levels, it is difficult because it does take 2 individuals to drive down there. It's an hour one way and then an hour back. And, you know, we're going to have to look at, you know, what fuel costs to go over there as well. Well,
my concern is that at 10 to 15,000, it seems like that's an awful small amount compared to 700,000 when we've been asking interim staff to take pay freezes, and been dealing with the contracts that we're trying to keep them as low as possible. But I'm just curious that we shouldn't look at a different way of looking at this thing rather than building a $700,000 decant facility when at 10 or 15,000 to go a lot of years driving back and forth. Maybe we need to add people and not worry about the decant facility, but cover while those guys are traveling and people get the jobs that we've been trying to get done. The other questions that I have to do with the consolidation effort by the fire departments. Curious as to why, when we had a fire chief in place and Camas decided to get rid of Chief Leon, why did they go ahead at that time to hire a fire chief when, in fact, we never even bothered to look at, and we already had these discussions underway. We never, at least in my estimation, when I was on council or otherwise, they never once looked at our chief to run the entire organization. Do you know why that happened that way?
I know I have been told the reasons why the City of Camas administration moved forward to hire Chief Swinhart at the time. And that was because we were still, we hadn't moved far enough in the discussions on the consolidated departments and all of that, that I don't believe their administration felt completely comfortable that we may not pull out at some point again, and that they would then be behind the 8 ball in starting that hiring process.
So I know that when he was hired, a large portion of us down there said, well, there's our new chief, because that's, Camas went ahead with their hiring process, and here we had a chief, interim chief, had a on-board fire chief at the time that I don't think was given any consideration whatsoever to operating these two departments. And I'm disappointed in the fact that Camas went ahead and hired, and that's really, quite honestly, one of the things that everybody's concerned about is how this is all going to play out, and not during this interim period of time. I can tell you right now, Mr. Mayor, that not everybody's on board. Don't ever believe that. I don't care who tells you that. I'm down there every day, and I can tell you more than half, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of half of the paid staff, not on board. Most of the volunteers, not on board. Too many questions and are not answered. I want to go back to what Councilman Shoemaker pointed out. That was one of the first bullet points I put a check next to, and acknowledges fiscal unsustainability of current system. The reason that I'm concerned about that is that in the earliest parts of this with Mr. Lewis, 2012 was looking pretty tough. 13 and 14 were unsustainable. And at least I would like to ask this council to ask for a full audit of how 12 became from an 8% in the red to a 0.8% in the red, and how can we sustain this in 13 and 14? Because we were told very specifically that the assessed evaluation was not going to change that, and that as far as everything went, we were behind the 8 ball, way behind for 13 and 14, and now all of a sudden, apparently we don't have a deficit, and I'd like to have an accounting of how that became a non-issue. And I'm concerned. Did the assessed evaluations come up? As far as I know, Sean, when I've talked to you, there's been no money exchanged hands from Washougal to go to Camas. Where did that deficit get wiped out at? And I do believe that this council needs to have a full accounting of how that came out. If it's not, it certainly starts to appear that we robbed out of, that the system robbed out of Camas's general fund or something in there, because we were 8% below, we were 8% in the red. And now all of a sudden we're ahead of the game. And so at least I'd like to see this council have a full accounting of all of those dollars, where they came from, whether it's assessed evaluations, whether it's dollars that came from a budget or general fund, or however that came out. But I've not seen that, and I've not heard anything from anybody that says they've seen that. And I also know that anytime we've entered into this argument about, or discussion I should say, about consolidating, Chief Bivens, who was the chief of Vancouver, Jack Snook has got a private company who generally tends to help organizations join together, said if you're doing this to save money, you're doing it for the wrong reasons, because it's not going to change. And I think we're already seeing that. With Chief Schumacher, we didn't eliminate him. We didn't even cut his pay. He's just now got a different assignment. So since this whole process started with the EMS struggling financially, I'd like to know why and what has changed since then to make this now all of a sudden a great idea. As far as sustaining having an ambulance in Washougal, we'll have a later discussion about that. I don't want it to everybody to think that it's a great thing, because it's not. We don't have an ambulance every day, 24/7 in the city. These guys go on calls. They're running out to East County Fire and Rescue. They go to Vancouver. They do all kinds of things. They go training. So they're not there all the time. So I don't want this ambulance service to turn into a feel-good thing, thinking, all the citizens thinking, wow, we've got an ambulance in-house.
Right.
Because we don't. It's not there all the time. Is it great when we have a structure fire and the guys roll out together? We got a team of 4 to hit the fire initially? Sure, I'm never gonna argue that. Do we all get along? Basically, sure. But the initial argument, and Councilman Shoemaker said that, how do we sustain this thing? Are we gonna be here in a year trying to figure out where the dollars are coming from? Well, if this went from an 8% in the hole to a 0.8%, or in fact in the black, how do we get there?
Yep, and we can get you that information, probably some additional detail. I know Chief Freed did a presentation a month ago that had a good portion of that information in there as far as where it turned around for him, so.
Right. We can refresh that information.
I think the Fire Consolidation Committee might benefit from that also.
You bet.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Rod. Any other members of the public? Good evening.
Hello, my name is Norma Robinson, and I live at 747 C Street. Mr. Mayor and City Council, I am objecting to the increase in the stormwater, sewer, and water bill. Basically, because the economy is so bad and many citizens are already struggling to meet their expenses. Those who have jobs are working fewer hours, and they're working for less dollars per hour, many of them. And the seniors are on fixed incomes and have been impacted by increased cost of food and gas and medicine. An increase in the stormwater, sewer, and water bill is an unaffordable burden for the people in this community that are not doing well money-wise. I encourage you to find an affordable solution for the citizens of Washougal. And I know that's a very difficult job and you have lots of things to do, but there are a lot of people out in the community that are unhappy about it, to put it mildly. And if they could get some encouragement that maybe we wouldn't have increases next year and the year after, or that this could be lowered even a small amount for a while, people might be happier. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mrs. Robinson. I can certainly assure you, as Mr. Scott can and Mr. Dunn, that we've already started a number of those meetings that are asking those questions as well. So,
thank you so much.
You bet. Any other members of the public that wish to address council this evening? Okay. The only item that I have for you this evening, this Wednesday, we do have our employee awards and a citywide staff meeting. Typically on the staff meetings, we wouldn't necessarily involve the council in those, but with the employee awards, I think you've all received invitations to be there. 3:30 out at the wastewater treatment facility. And I believe we have notice to the papers already as well that may be happening, but all the city offices will close that day at 3:15 in the afternoon as well. So we will be closed here, other than the fire and police departments are still handling their calls. But if they can be, they'll be down there at the wastewater treatment facility with us as well in the new building. Dave, any other items from yourself? Okay. Items from council? Paul?
Blood drive this Thursday afternoon at Washougal Fire Station. There are some significant shortages, so if you are a blood donor, please show up. Thank you.
Thank you. Other items? Connie Jo?
Yeah, I was also at the burn for the bowling alley. And thank you, Rod. What a great experience that was. And he stood there and educated my husband and I for quite a while, and everyone involved was so gracious with their time and expertise, and it was just a blast. I have a picture of me and my frizzy curly hair, wild and woolly because of the winds and the smoke, and it was just great. So thank you for inviting us and making that VIP spot available, and the invitation. That's wonderful. I love being part of the community and things going on. I'd like to report briefly about the C-Tran meeting in case anybody'd like to know. You probably have read it in the paper, but goodness, that meeting started at 4 and did not end until 9. We had a lot of business to deal with. But we spent about an hour and a half in a workshop during that meeting just addressing whether or not to vote, not to vote, raise taxes or not raise taxes. We did not cast a vote that night, but again, I did have consensus from Camas and Washougal both that we would be in favor of a full district vote. All of the cities, except for the 3 Vancouver representatives, were in favor of the full district. The 3 county commissioners were very much in favor of the full district vote. We had some distinguished guests there. State Senator Benton was there, and Representative Paul Harris. Probably at least close to another 18 citizens approached, and they all asked for a full district vote. But the city of Washougal hasn't even discussed it yet at one of their meetings, so who knows? They're meeting right now as we're meeting, so I don't know what.
City of Vancouver?
What did I say? Yes, I said Washougal. Washougal on the brain. Yeah, the city of Vancouver has not had a discussion yet. So they're probably having some fireworks over there right now. Probably hear about it in the paper in the morning. They're saying, I think the city of Vancouver is hoping to avoid a vote and figure out some other method to pay for it. But now they're pushing the deadline for this decision from the C-Tran board. Absolute deadline is now July. So hopefully we'll accomplish something as far as a vote for this to happen in April, which will be the 10th. But it's not in my control. I don't know for sure how soon it will happen, but that's what went on. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that marathon meeting.
Yeah.
I too attended the burn, not in the VIP section, but standing on the sidewalk, and I was just amazed at the stories people were telling of meeting their husbands or wives or their children that went there. I mean, the stories were incredible. The history of the building was great, but it was so much fun to see it fall in, and I mean, it was a great show. So, and then this Wednesday, the 5th grade Young Women in Action program at Hathaway School, the young ladies will be studying money and management, and that's from 12:15 to 2:15.
Maybe we should be there to study that too. Other items from council members? We're adjourned.
Will you be around?
Do you know about Local Connections?
Oh, yes.
I'm going to go to that.
Where is it?
It's at the insurance agency in downtown Camas.
No, I'll go when it comes back. Thank you. I'll go when it comes back to Washougal.
And then there is, the Wellness Committee has I forget what they're calling it, but it's a